New Explorer Core, First Arm, Spinward Operations Area, System J5375, Zenith Jump Point, Jump Ship Rabbit's Foot, October 1st, 2152. You're at risk of becoming a stoic, Tenica said as she walked into the cargo bay of the Rabbit's Foot where Vasil was working on his armor. He looked up and nodded before going back to trying to reattach a couple of small parts. She continued, I was thinking that we should give your armor the NEC colors so that you could match the rest of the team. Vasil looked over the rest of the suit, which was in well-organized pieces on the metal plating of the deck. He looked at the faded, scratched, and barely visible Jade Falcon on it around the viewport for a few seconds before he said, Not much left to signify what I once was. Not that it matters any longer. Tenica frowned a bit with the statement, but countered quickly by saying, You are what you once were, and more. We don't need faded paint to see that. You still fight for your comrades. Vasil nodded, looking up at Tenica and then down at the faintly glowing blue eagle on her forearm. She noticed him looking at it and twisted her arm a bit to show it off. Vasil then said, Sometimes I wonder how you would have performed as a Jade Falcon. Oh? Tenica chuckled before asking, What's your verdict? Vasil looked up into Tenica's eyes and said, I think your empathy would have gotten you killed pretty quickly. The cargo bay filled with Tenica's laughter, which made Vasil chuckle as well. Finally, after nearly 10 seconds of laughter, she wiped the tear from her eye and said, That might be the most threatening compliment I've ever received. New Explorer Core, First Arm, Spinward Operations Area, System J5381, Nadir Jump Point, Jump Ship Rabbit's Foot, October 12th, 2152. Everyone was on edge, though it was deemed unlikely that the last resort jump ship would be in system. Still, being back in the system where they ran into them was the best place to start actively searching for their jump ship and wherever it came from. The Combine forces deployed almost instantly following the jump, even though the scanners were clear. A half-dozen aerofighters swirled as the jump ships took in every piece of data possible with their combined assets. Wren had overheard Corporal Kirsch explain the magnifying effect to Cal a few weeks ago. She said that basically with the three ships a decent distance apart, their measurements of the orbiting bodies and their locations in the system were even more accurate. When Wren had visited the science team yesterday, they were practically giddy as they were combing through the data collected from the systems they had jumped through to get here. It was nice to see them happy, even though Wren only understood about 25% of what they were talking about, even with her background in science. It was a pleasant distraction from the threat that the jump ship from the last resort represented. If they didn't end up finding him, eventually the Combine ships would return to the inner sphere and it may doom the NEC mission. It couldn't possibly continue in this region if they had to constantly watch their backs for Gia and her crew. Even with the new improved data, the new Raven Alliance partners and Clan Wolf wouldn't be content with retreading known territory. Wren sighed, gripping the arms of the command chair as she processed the stress of all these worries. Heavy weighs the crown, Captain? Cal said as he walked over with a cup of something that vaguely resembled coffee. She took it from him and sipped before responding, I'm just curious now what they're going to want to do now that we know the system is quiet. We've got the list of possible next jumps, it's just a matter of rolling the dice. How many possibilities are we looking at? Cal asked. 2 from here, not counting the star we jumped from to arrive. From there, 3 or 4 possibilities each, if those 2 are clear, Wren replied. Cal looked over at the holographic map of the current system and the nearby stars before saying, Sounds like a quickly compounding problem. A message from Captain Tanabe arrived a few minutes later explaining the plan to split the fleet for 1 jump. The Rabbit's Foot would stay in the system as the anchor while each of the Combine invaders jumps to one of the nearby systems. Since they have batteries for a second jump, they will record what's there and jump back as soon as possible to reinforce the fleet if the other is in trouble. I suppose that makes this first step more efficient, Cal said. Wren nodded, then added, At the cost of the element of surprise. It has some risk to it, but that's DCMS efficiency for you. System J5381, Nadir Jump Point, Jump Ship Kikumaru, October 18th, 2152. Captain Mai Tanabe stood at the helm and watched over the bridge crew as they busied themselves with all the typical procedures that needed to be done before a jump. Most of this crew had been with the Kikumaru for at least 3 years, so their efficiency was top-notch, Tanabe felt with any group venture, a little discipline and continuity went a long way. ETA on the jump, helmsman? She asked. The young officer stood from his console and replied, 2 minutes, 30 seconds till jump ready, Captain. Tanabe reached over to tap the communications link with the Kikumaru's sister ship before asking, Captain Sino, 2:30 until jump, on my command, yes? Yes, Captain, we are ready, came the crisp response a few moments later. Pulling up the comlink with the rabbit's foot, Captain Tanabe asked, Are your fighters prepped for launch? If we come back with a chaser, you're going to need to be ready. Yes, Captain, Rin replied. We're ready to go on your order, Captain, the jump officer stated. Signal the Nara. We go in T-minus 30 seconds, Captain Tanabe stated as she took her seat in the Kikumaru's command chair. Exactly 30 seconds later, both the Kikumaru and the Naru jumped from the system in intense flashes of light, and the rabbit's foot was left alone at the jump point. Corporal Kirsch, set the clock for 3 minutes, Rin said as she sighed out of nervousness. If either of the jump ships ended up in trouble, it was the earliest that they could make the jump back. Ravens, go ahead and launch, but keep it tight with the rabbit's foot, Rin said into the comlink. Both pilots replied with an aft, Captain, and moments later Rin could see the 2 blue triangles representing the Korax aerospace fighters begin to orbit the jump ship. A minute passed, and then a second minute joined it. Rin called down to Cal and asked, Cal, are people ready in their mechs if we need some additional firepower? A few seconds later, Cal responded, They're all buttoned up and ready to take a spacewalk if needed. Vasile is ready in case there's a boarding attempt. At the 3-minute mark, everyone on the bridge held their breaths. Rin watched the holotable where the rabbit's foot floated with its swirling twin Korax escorts. We have jump ship flare, Colonel Kirsch called out. Several seconds later, the holotable showed a flash of light, and one of the invaders blipped into existence in hologram form. A second later, the words Kikumaru appeared next to it. Well, there's 1 out of 2, Rin said under her breath. The comlink with the Kikumaru went live, and Captain Tanabe's voice stated, All clear at System A. Any sign of the Nara? No, Captain, Rin responded. Another 34 seconds passed, while Rin stared at the holotable trying to sort out what Captain Tanabe will want to do if the Nara doesn't return. The Kikumaru's jump batteries were drained, and the rabbit's foot was not going to be jumping into a possible firefight with only 2 aerospace fighters piloted by teenagers. The time seemed to crawl, with every passing second feeling like minutes. The Kikumaru's dropships launched and were slowly starting to orbit the jump ship while aerospace fighters launched. We have a second flare, Captain, Corporal Kirsch stated with enthusiasm. Rin felt a wave of relief as a few seconds later the holotable displayed a flash and then the arrival of the second combine jump ship. That relief quickly drained away as Kirsch announced another jump ship flare. Captain Tanabe's voice cut across the channel comms of all 3 ships. With a firm and clear tone, she announced, Prepare for combat. A few seconds later, Captain Seno's voice, a little shaky from the jump, but clear enough, belted out, Stand down. They're prepared to negotiate. As the jump ship flashed into existence several dozen kilometers away from the NEC fleet, the holotable added the previously logged designation for it. Rin furrowed her brow, taking in the shape of what was obviously the ship of Guider Flores and the rest of the Last Resort's murderous crew. Captain Tanabe's voice on the comlink was forceful and her message brief when she said, Stand by. Rin sighed as Cal entered the bridge carrying one of the ship's rifles along with several satchels of ammo. What's going on, Rin? He asked with a healthy amount of concern. The jump ship from the Last Resort is here. Apparently they're prepared to negotiate, Rin responded without looking away from the holotable. Cal set the rifle against the bulkhead and pulled the satchels from his shoulder. With a frown on his face, he said, That didn't go so well before. I guess we're going to find out if the Combine has better luck, Rin said, crossing her arms over her chest. System J5381, Nadir Jump Point. Jump Ship, Rabbit's Foot. October 13th, 2152. It was a promising sign that the Last Resort's jump ship didn't launch any aerospace fighters or attempt to activate its communications scrambling gear. However, Rin and the crew of the Rabbit's Foot had seen the friendly posturing before with the previous meeting with a representative who went by the name Gia. The first meeting was held over direct feed holographics. Sure enough, Guider Flores' face came up along with the Combine captain's. Rin knew her face was visible to the others, and it was obvious by the reaction on Flores' features that she remembered their last interaction. It is our profound honor to welcome the representatives of the Draconis Combine to the Dominion of the Last Resort, Gutter Flores began in a tone that one might mistake for friendly. She continued, "We would propose an in-person meeting. However, during our last interaction with the crew of the Rabbit's Foot, they installed a computer virus into our network that caused issues for days. You will have to forgive our hesitation following that undeserved aggression." Rin bristled before responding. "Any penetration of our systems was your own doing. If you stole something you ended up not wanting, that is not our issue. We had a deal to leave your claimed system peacefully, and then you fired on us. It was likely your intent from the start of those negotiations." Guider Flores responded in a stern tone. "Whatever deal you think you may have had with Gia, it's irrelevant to the matter at hand. Your aggression was met with aggression. We can and will defend ourselves from the treachery of the Inner Sphere." "Guider Flores," Captain Tanabe interjected, "the Combine has empowered me to speak on their behalf with the intent of opening lines of communication and possible cooperation. We are here in force, but would much rather seek a peaceable solution to whatever issues there are between you and the new Explorer Corps." Guider Flores' face softened a bit and she responded, "We are open to that continued discussion without the interference of this new Explorer Corps." The communications link with the Rabbit's Foot abruptly cut out and Rin looked over at Cal. He responded, "Not surprising they would play victim. Seems flimsy, but it's the card they have to play. Let's see what Tanabe is able to suss out." "Part of me wants to jump from the system and be on our merry way," Rin said with another sigh. Cal chuckled and responded, "Yeah, I don't think the Combine would appreciate that. This was a lot easier when we were logging barren planets and recording planet orbital data," Rin said, finally walking back to the command chair. End Part 5. Thank you, as always, for joining us on this adventure. I really appreciate it. If you want to help, hitting that like and subscribe button lets YouTube know that it's content worth sharing to others. If you want to go above and beyond, channel memberships are inexpensive, and the money goes right back into the channel to help keep the spigot of nonsense open. Until we meet again, take care and go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.